Chapter 1. The Nile Whispers at Night. A warm night breeze drifts over the Nile, and the river's dark surface shimmers under a blanket of stars. Along the banks, tall reeds rustle ever so softly, as if sharing ancient secrets with the water. In the distance, a lonely flute plays a melancholic tune, its notes carrying across the river's hush. Mud brick villages dot the shore, their lamplight flickers reflected in the gentle current. It is a scene of profound stillness and timelessness. Here, in this nocturnal silence, one can almost imagine that time has slipped away, that we have travelled back thousands of years to the age of the Pharaohs. In the quiet of this Egyptian night, history feels alive and present. The cool desert air carries the faint aroma of dung fires and sweet lotus blossoms from the river's edge. Overhead, the sky is a deep indigo, strewn with the same brilliant constellations that watched over ancient Egypt. The Milky Way, known to those ancient people as the celestial Nile, flows luminously above, a mirror to the life-giving river below. On nights like this, the Nile whispers. It whispers stories of pharaohs and pyramids, of temples and tombs hidden beneath the sand. It tells of an ancient world that rose along its banks, a world of grandeur and mystery, where every dawn brought offerings to the sun god Ra, and every dusk saw prayers for safe passage through the night. In the distance, barely visible in the starlight, loom the silhouettes of great stone monuments. Pyramids and temples stand like dark, stoic sentinels against the horizon. Their outlines are softened by darkness, but their mere presence evokes awe. These monuments have stood for millennia, keeping vigil over the Nile. If they could speak, what tales would they tell? Perhaps they would speak of secrets buried deep within their stones, and of curses laid upon those who dare disturb their eternal rest. Tonight, we will listen to some of those hidden secrets carried on the breeze. We will wander gently and unhurriedly through the ancient land of Egypt, through its deserts and its temples, its palaces and necropolises. We will tread softly, so as not to wake the spirits that slumber. In hushed tones, we'll recall the wonders the ancients built and the mysteries they left behind. From the building of the Great Pyramid under a blazing sun, to the sealing of a pharaoh's tomb in darkness, from the rituals of temple priests to the whispers of a curse when a tomb is opened, all will unfold as a soothing tapestry of history. So let the world of today fall away. Let the quiet of this night and the voice of the Nile guide us back in time. Imagine standing on the Nile's shore over 3,000 years ago, the rhythmic lap of water against a boat, the creak of wooden ropes on a sailing barge, perhaps the distant bark of a temple watchdog echoing across the fields. These are the only sounds. On the western bank, where the sun sets, lie the cities of the dead, clusters of tombs and pyramids rising from the sands. On the eastern bank, where the sun rises, are villages of the living, farmers, craftsmen, children chasing each other by torchlight before bed. In one of those villages, maybe there's a small mud brick house, where a mother tells her child a bedtime story about the great King Khufu, who built a mountain of stone, or about the curse that will befall anyone who violates a sacred tomb. The child listens with heavy eyes, imagining golden treasures hidden in darkness, and sorcerer priests intoning spells to guard them. The mother's voice is low and lulling, as she recounts how the gods watch over the just and punish the wicked, even beyond death. We begin our journey in that very realm of kings and curses. Let us drift along the Nile's current, and step ashore, where a colossal shape looms against the night sky, a shape so vast and solid that it seems like a natural part of the earth, yet it is man-made. This is where secrets were built to last forever. This is the plateau of Giza, home to the Great Pyramid, a place of ancient whispers carved in stone. A brief pause as the soft sounds of night continue, water lapping, reeds swaying, perhaps a distant jackal's yip carried on the breeze. Chapter 2. Secrets of the Great Pyramid. In the first light of dawn, The sky above Giza shifts from deep blue to a gentle violet. As the darkness recedes, the true enormity of the structure before us is revealed. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, ancient and majestic, dominates the plateau. Its once smooth white limestone casing stones have mostly vanished, taken by time and new builders in later eras. Now, the rough steps of its core blocks catch the dawn's early rays. For a moment, the pyramid's eastern face glows golden, reflecting the sunrise, just as it did when it was newly built, over 45 centuries ago, Reuters.com. In those days, its sides were polished and brilliant, likely gleaming like beacons in the sun. It must have been a breathtaking sight, a mountain of light rising from the desert, visible for miles up and down the Nile. Picture the scene in roughly 2560 BC, when this pyramid was being built for Pharaoh Khufu. The air is filled with the sounds of construction, the thud of copper chisels on stone, the grunts of workers hauling massive blocks, the chants of overseers keeping time, and the occasional roar of command from the architects. Thousands of skilled labourers and craftsmen are at work, not slaves, as later myths suggested, but farmers paying their labour taxes during the flood season when fields are under water, and artisans proud to contribute to the king's great project. They have camped in barracks near the site. Cooking fires send up fragrant wood smoke each morning as bread is baked and onions are roasted for the day's rations. It's hard, dusty work, yet the labourers sing together as they haul stone blocks on sledges across dampened sand. They feel a sense of purpose. They are building something eternal, a monument that will house their divine ruler's spirit and ensure the cycle of life continues for Egypt. Khufu's vizier, perhaps the legendary architect Hemiunu, stands atop a rise, surveying the alignment. The pyramid must be perfect, its base oriented almost exactly to the cardinal points, north, south, east, and west. Under the scorching midday sun, he checks the shadows cast by the cornerstones to ensure the alignment with the North Star is true. Indeed, the Great Pyramid is oriented with astonishing precision, its sides facing the four cardinal directions within a fraction of a degree. This is no accident, but a result of careful observation of the stars and meticulous planning. Overhead, the sun blazes, and the limestone blocks being levered into place radiate heat, yet the work goes on, slow and methodical. One by one, tens of thousands of stone blocks are set into position. Some are small enough to be handled by a team of men. Others, like the granite slabs for the king's chamber deep inside, are so heavy that the very ramps and ropes strain under their weight. Now, as the day progresses, imagine stepping inside the pyramid in progress. It's cooler within the rising corridors, away from the sun. In the half-light filtering through shafts and open construction tunnels, teams of workers polish the walls of a narrow passage that slopes upward into the heart of the pyramid. This passageway will one day be sealed off and hidden behind a smooth outer casing, its entrance known only to those who built it. Further inside, a great gallery with a high corbelled ceiling is taking shape, its steep ramp leading up toward what will be the king's chamber. The scent of dust and sweat lingers in the confined air. A torch flickers, illuminating the faces of engineers, carefully fitting together massive slabs with uncanny precision. So tight is the fit that not even a knife's blade can slide between the stones. In the king's chamber itself, though it's not yet complete in our imagined moment, immense blocks of deep black granite from Aswan will line the walls, ceiling, and floor. These blocks are being hauled up the pyramid's flank by sheer human muscle, ropes, and ingenuity. When finally placed, they form a sarcophagus room at the pyramid's core, where Khufu's body will lie in its sarcophagus of red granite. The chamber's ceiling will consist of granite beams weighing tens of tons each, and above it, relieving chambers to distribute the weight of the mountain above. The builders are leaving nothing to chance. They intend this chamber to endure without collapse for eternity. When the pharaoh's body is finally interred years later, the event is solemn and secretive. Khufu has died, and after grand funeral processions down the Nile, and ceremonies in the mortuary temple near the pyramid's base, his golden coffin is borne slowly up that ascending passage. Priests chant prayers from the Book of the Dead, their voices echoing eerily off stone walls as they proceed upward. Flickering oil lamps light the way, casting dancing shadows on the finely cut stone. The air inside is heavy with the smell of incense and hot lamp oil. Finally, the procession reaches the king's chamber. In the silence of that chamber, a silence so profound one can hear their own heartbeat, they lay the pharaoh's coffin within the red granite sarcophagus. Treasures of gold, precious amulets, alabaster jars of perfume, and food offerings are arranged around the chamber to provision the king's spirit. You can almost feel the presence of the divine in that moment. The priests move with reverence, handling each object as if it might awaken. As the priests make their exit, they perform rituals to seal the tomb spiritually. One high priest, palms raised, intones a final warning to any who might trespass. Pharaoh Khufu, soar to the heavens in peace. Let none disturb your rest. Any impure intruder who enters here shall face the wrath of the gods. Though the exact words are lost to time, one imagines such sentiments were uttered in these holy moments. These spoken warnings are reinforced by written ones. Deep in the pyramid or in Khufu's mortuary temple, hieroglyphic inscriptions beseech the gods to protect this sacred burial. Perhaps a curse is carved on a stela near the tomb entrance, a common practice in private tombs of that era, something to the effect of, "As for anyone who shall injure this tomb, may the crocodile be against them in water and snakes against them on land. May the hippopotamus be against them in water and the scorpion on land. Woe be to any who would defile the king's resting place." After the last priest slips out, workers slide heavy stone blocks into place to plug the corridors behind them. Great limestone plugs are dropped into the ascending passage, sealing it off. Hidden doors are shut tight. The entrance of the pyramid itself is sealed, and covered so expertly that it blends with the rest of the outer casing. From outside, one would have no clue where the doorway even was, just a seamless triangle of limestone rising to the sky. The work complete, the pyramid stands now as Khufu's eternal house. Silence falls in the passageways that no living person will walk again for thousands of years. Within in the darkness, the pharaoh sleeps amid his treasures, the air still and undisturbed. Time flows on as gently and ceaselessly as the Nile. Dynasties rise and fall. Future generations build their own pyramids and tombs, burying new secrets. Yet Khufu's great pyramid endures. Through the ages, it witnesses history. The end of Egypt's pyramid-building era, the shifting sands that slowly begin to cover other monuments, the passing of priests who remembered the old ways. The outside of the pyramid is eventually stripped of some casing stones, perhaps used by later kings or taken by quarrymen in the Greco-Roman and medieval periods to build new cities like Cairo. By the time of the Arab caliphates, the entrance of Khufu's pyramid has long been forgotten, hidden behind a smooth facade of remaining casing stones high up on the face. In the 9th century AD, Caliph al-Ma'mun, eager to find treasure, orders his men to bore a tunnel straight into the pyramid's side. Imagine the scene. By night, in torchlight, the caliph's workers chip and hammer away at the immovable stone, the sound of their iron tools ringing within chambers that haven't heard a human sound since Khufu's burial. Eventually, these intruders break into the pyramid's internal passages, startling themselves when they suddenly find a hollow corridor. Their flickering torches illuminate passageways and chambers coated in millennia of dust. They find no king and no piles of gold. Tomb robbers from ancient times likely reached Khufu's chamber long before them, or perhaps Khufu's body was removed by priests to save it from such a fate. The great sarcophagus lies empty, its lid long gone. Only silence greets these explorers, as if the pyramid itself is resentful of the intrusion, but resigned. The caliph's men leave, disappointed, but in awe of the pyramid's engineering. They remark on how impossibly precise everything is, how even after so long the chambers are intact and the air inside is strangely fresh. They have forced their way in, yet they respect that this place has kept its secrets well. The pyramid remains, wounded by a rough tunnel, but still largely a mystery. It will continue to fascinate and baffle onlookers for centuries more. Even in modern times, the Great Pyramid holds tight to some secrets. In the 21st century, scientists using advanced scanning technology detected something unexpected, a hidden void deep within, a previously unknown empty space, behind the walls Reuters.com. And then, near the entrance, they discovered a hidden corridor just behind the stones, unseen since antiquity Reuters.com. Think about that. More than 4,500 years after its construction, Khufu's pyramid still surprises us. It is as if the pyramid is a living entity, revealing its mysteries slowly, on its own terms. One can't help but wonder what else lies hidden in the darkness of its core. As we stand before this monumental structure in the soft glow of dawn, feeling the night's coolness give way to day, we are reminded that ancient Egypt was adept at keeping secrets. Here is a secret in stone and geometry, a puzzle of engineering that modern people are still trying to fully understand. The Great Pyramid stands not just as a tomb, but as a symbol of the pharaoh's power, of religious devotion, and of the ancient Egyptians' desire to touch eternity. It has weathered thousands of years of wind and sand. It has seen the rise of Greek and Roman conquerors, the spread of new religions, and the march of tourists up its flanks. Yet in the quiet moments of dawn or under the stars at midnight, when the crowds are gone, it is still possible to feel the sacred hush around it. The pyramid seems to commune with the heavens above. Legends say that the pyramid's shape, wide at the base and pointed at the top, was like the rays of the sun solidified, or like a giant staircase for the pharaoh's soul to climb to the sky. Perhaps on nights when the sky is clear and the stars align just so, one might even imagine a ghostly pharaoh ascending that staircase of light, guided by the North Star shining directly above the apex. Leaving the Great Pyramid behind, bathed now in early morning sun, we continue our journey. But Egypt holds more than one secret in its sands. As the day brightens, casting long shadows of these pyramids across the plateau, our path leads us southward, along the Nile once again. There are whispers of another marvel, one that lies no more, a hidden wonder that once surpassed even these pyramids in fame, yet has since vanished almost without a trace. The Nile's currents will carry us to the site of a legendary labyrinth, a place of winding passages and hidden chambers that confounded all who visited. Our next chapter unfolds the tale of that labyrinth, a lost treasure of the ancient world. Soft transition with the sound of a wooden boat drifting down the river, oars gently splashing, and maybe the call of a distant bird as midday approaches. Chapter 3. The Lost Labyrinth of the Pharaohs. The sun now stands high in the sky as we drift toward the Fayum region, an oasis-like area west of the Nile where a great lake once spread its waters. In the midst of this region, near the now much receded Lake Moeris, legends speak of an astonishing structure built during the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, a labyrinth so grand that ancient travelers claimed it outshone even the pyramids. Wikipedia.org. Our boat glides into a network of canals that feed the fertile Fayum. We disembark near the ruins of a place called Hawara. Here, a dusty plain stretches out before us, dotted with broken stones and faint outlines of walls, half buried in sand. At first glance, it seems like nothing more than the remnants of an old temple or a dilapidated foundation. But beneath our feet, and in the memory of history, lies the lost labyrinth of Egypt. Imagine the labyrinth as it was around 1800 BC, under the reign of Pharaoh Amenemhat, the third of the 12th dynasty. Wikipedia.org. In its prime, this complex was a stone marvel of enormous size, a single building encompassing a vast grid of halls and chambers within a rectangular enclosure. According to those who saw it in later centuries, it contained 12 great courts, arranged in pairs back to back, 6 facing north and 6 facing south end, wikipedia.org. These courts were likely filled with columns of polished stone, cool and elegant, with sunlight filtering down from high ceilings. But the true wonder lay in the rooms. 3,000 rooms, it was said, half of them above ground and half underground in wikipedia.org. Corridors connected to corridors in a bewildering maze. Twisting passageways led visitors through a veritable puzzle of stone. It was so complex that one could wander for days and still not be certain of finding the way out without a guide. To stroll through the labyrinth in its glory would have been a humbling experience. Picture yourself stepping into one of those roofed courts. The moment you pass through the doorway, the noise of the outside world falls away. A strange calm envelops you. Your footsteps echo on the smooth stone floors, the echoes bouncing off distant walls, giving a hint at the massive scale of this place. The pillars are carved with hieroglyphs recounting feats of the kings, or perhaps the names and images of provincial gods from across Egypt, since this might have served as some sort of administrative or ceremonial center as well. There's a faint smell of cool, damp stone, mixed with the incense that priests burn in a distant chapel. Moving inward, you enter a corridor lit by torches in wall niches. The light flickers on beautifully painted reliefs, perhaps scenes of the pharaoh making offerings, or gnomes, districts of Egypt personified and paying tribute. The design is a true labyrinth. At each turn, you see multiple doorways and passages. Some lead into small chambers, others into yet more corridors. It's a deliberate architectural trick. Only those who know the path or follow the guidance of a priest can navigate it easily. Others would surely become disoriented in this stone maze. According to later Greek accounts, the labyrinth wasn't just empty halls, it was also a kind of necropolis. The Greek historian Herodotus, who visited around the 5th century BC, wrote that the caretakers of the labyrinth told him of underground chambers that they dared not show to visitors. Wikipedia.org. Those subterranean chambers, they said, were the tombs of kings of an earlier age and of sacred crocodiles. Imagine that. Beneath the grand halls where living men walked, there were hidden vaults holding the mummies of pharaohs, and perhaps the embalmed bodies of crocodiles revered as gods. This conjures an eerie image. While the sunlight played in the courtyards above, below in the darkness lay royal sarcophagi in silence, guarded by the weight of the earth and the confusion of the labyrinth overhead. Priests carrying oil lamps might descend narrow stone staircases to tend to those hidden tombs, their faint lamplight revealing rows of carved doors, or sealed entrances behind which royalty rested for eternity. Herodotus was clearly awed by the labyrinth. He wrote that it surpassed even the pyramids in its grandeur in wikipedia.org. He described how bewildering it was to walk through, with paths that twisted and turned until one lost sense of direction in wikipedia.org. The walls, he said, were covered with fine carvings and paintings. Every court was surrounded by elegant columns of white stone wikipedia.org. This was a place designed to impress and to guard secrets. If indeed the pharaohs of the 12th dynasty or their queens were buried beneath, it makes sense that they wanted to protect those burial chambers by constructing such a monumental maze above them. What happened to this incredible place? In our tranquil tour, we see it first in the mind's eye as it was, echoing corridors and sunlit courts. Now, time-lapse centuries in your imagination, see the labyrinth fall into disuse after the glory of the 12th dynasty faded. Later, pharaohs shifted the political centers of Egypt, new capital cities arose. By the late New Kingdom or the Third Intermediate Period, perhaps the labyrinth was no longer maintained as it once was. Floods from the nearby lake might have damaged parts of it, or earthquakes might have shaken its foundations. Stone by stone, parts of the roof could have collapsed. And then, like many ancient monuments, it likely became a quarry. People of later eras, perhaps in the Greco-Roman period, pried away its fine limestone and granite to use elsewhere. The grand columns were removed, the carved blocks hauled off to build new temples or churches or mosques. Over many generations, the labyrinth was disassembled by human hands and by nature's persistence. Eventually, it sank into the earth, quite literally. By the time early archaeologists like Flinders Petrie came here in the 19th century, they found only the vast foundation of the structure and scattered fragments, enough to trace its enormous size, but not to resurrect its foreman Wikipedia.org. Now, as we stand among the ruins in our journey, silence reigns. The midday sun beats down on broken stone. A lone hawk circles overhead in the wide, pale sky. One can walk through the low mounds and faint outlines of what was once walls, and try to imagine the great halls that stood here. Perhaps a shard of polished granite half buried in sand catches the light, a last remnant of a mighty pillar. There is a hush of ghosts in this place. If you close your eyes, you might hear echoes of those ancient footsteps, the murmur of priests guiding pilgrims, or the distant echo of an alarmed sacred ibis calling from a reflecting pool in one of the courtyards. But open your eyes, and it's just you and the desert's quiet. The labyrinth's secrets dissolved into legend. Writers through the ages puzzled over it, unsure if it was as large as described, or perhaps an exaggeration. Only in recent times did we confirm it truly existed, thanks to archaeological surveys that mapped its foundation. But its mystery remains compelling. What might have been hidden in those sealed underground rooms? Were there indeed royal tombs that grave robbers never found because of the maze above? Or perhaps storerooms containing records or treasures of the 12th dynasty? Those secrets, if they existed, are likely lost. They could have been plundered long ago when eventually someone found a way in, or they could still lie deeply buried, collapsed under tons of rubble. It's a reminder of how fragile even the grandest creations can be, and yet how enduring their memory can remain, thanks to those who wrote about them. As the afternoon light begins to slant westward, painting the ruins in honeyed hues, we depart the site of the labyrinth. Its story adds a poignant note to our journey. Not all secrets survive intact. Some fade and vanish, leaving behind only traces and tales. But our exploration of Egypt's hidden secrets is far from over. Ahead of us, downriver and deeper into history's shadowy recesses, lies a valley where pharaohs sought eternal rest in secret tombs. It is a place where the living and the dead danced a careful dance of concealment and belief, and where the concept of a curse took on life of its own. We now make our way to Thebes, the city of 100 gates, and to the quiet cliffs of the Valley of the Kings, where more mysteries await under the mountain's watchful gaze. Sound of wind picking up slightly, as if afternoon desert winds begin to blow. Then a gentle fade into an evening ambiance, crickets, a crackling fire, as we transition to the next chapter. Chapter 4. Hidden Tombs in the Valley of the Kings. Evening falls as we arrive at the edge of the western Thebes necropolis. The sky over the desert is a deepening amber, and the sheer cliffs enclosing the Valley of the Kings are bathed in the last light of day. These rugged limestone cliffs form a natural amphitheatre of secrets. For in the folds of these canyons lie the tombs of the New Kingdom pharaohs, hidden underground palaces for the afterlife carved into the living rock. Unlike the giant pyramids of earlier times, these tombs were meant to be inconspicuous, to guard against robbers and intruders. Yet within, they were as lavish and carefully constructed as any pyramid, if not more so, decorated with spells and stars and scenes of the journey through the underworld. As darkness gently spreads, we light a torch and step into the valley itself. The ground underfoot is rocky gravel. The path winds between cliffs that loom like dark sentinels in the starry night. In these silent hills, more than 60 tombs are known, and perhaps others still lie undiscovered. Each tomb begins with an entrance cut into the cliffside, once sealed and hidden by rubble. Tonight, one such tomb beckons, the tomb of a pharaoh, long sealed away, its entrance now reopened by archaeologists so that we might peek inside this world of night and art. Imagine we stand before the tomb of Pharaoh Amenhotep, one of several Amenhoteps who ruled, perhaps Amenhotep III, the magnificent king of the 18th dynasty. By torchlight, we see the outline of a doorway leading into the rock. Above it, faint traces of plaster and paint show where workmen once disguised the entrance to look like natural rock, hiding it from view. Beside the door, a tablet of limestone, now taken by a museum, but let's say we see it as it was, is carved with a warning. The hieroglyphs are beautifully etched, a harsh message couched in formal language. I am the Pharaoh, resting in my tomb. Any who enters to defile it, may they lose their wealth and their sanity. May the Nile desert them. May the desert consume them. He who violates the eternal rest of the king shall have no heirs to carry his name. His heart's blood shall dry up. He shall drown in the great sea, and fire shall consume him. His bones shall crumble and become sand listverse.com. This chilling curse, based on actual ancient warnings, listverse.com, is meant to frighten away any tomb robber. To an ancient Egyptian, the threats enumerated are truly terrifying. Loss of wealth, death by drowning or burning, the end of one's family line, denial of proper burial, implied by saying no tomb or funeral, listverse.com. Essentially, every conceivable horror in this life and the next is promised to the intruder. Our torchlight quavers as we move past this ominous inscription and step over the threshold. Inside, the air immediately grows cooler and still. A narrow corridor slopes gently downward into the mountain. We proceed slowly, our soft footsteps stirring little puffs of ancient dust. The walls around us come alive in the torch's glow. Vibrant paintings cover every inch. Here, the pharaoh is depicted in the prime of life, making offerings to an array of gods: Isis, Osiris, Anubis, Hathor. There, texts from sacred funerary books, the Litany of Ra, the Book of Gates, provide guidance for the king's soul on its journey through the 12 hours of the night. The colors are astonishingly fresh in places. Deep lapis lazuli blues for the sky goddess Nut arching overhead, sun gold yellows for the solar boat carrying the pharaoh's soul, earthy reds and ochres for the figures of servants bringing food and wine for the afterlife. These halls have been sealed off from light and air for millennia, preserving the pigments. It feels as if the artists just laid down their brushes yesterday. We pass through successive chambers, each slightly larger than the last. Some tombs in this valley have long, straight passages, others twist and turn, as if to confuse malicious spirits, or perhaps tomb robbers. At intervals, side rooms branch off, storage chambers where all manner of goods were placed, chariots dismantled, model boats to sail the afterlife's rivers, chairs of ebony and ivory, chests of fine linen and jewelry. Our gentle footsteps might stumble on a stray artifact, perhaps a dropped bead from a necklace or a tiny Ushabti figurine that ancient tomb raiders overlooked. One can't help but wonder who might have entered here after the burial. Many tombs, despite the curses, were plundered within a few generations of their sealing. The lure of gold was too great, and often it was inside jobs, necropolis workers or corrupt officials, who knew the secret locations and ransacked them. Eventually, we reach the burial chamber. It's a spacious room, carved deep within the cliff heart. The ceiling is painted a deep blue and adorned with golden stars, a representation of the night sky, so that the pharaoh will sleep under the same stars he once gazed at in life, but in an eternal, unchanging form. On one wall, we see a beautiful depiction of Nut, the sky goddess, swallowing the sun at dusk to carry it through the underworld, and later birth it at dawn. All around, spells and images envelop the space, creating a protective cocoon of magic. In the center of the chamber rests a large stone sarcophagus. Its lid is ajar or missing, a sign that it was indeed disturbed long ago. Peering inside, by the flicker of our torch, we find it empty, except for dust and a few scraps of linen. The mummy of the pharaoh is gone. If we recall history, Perhaps we know why. In some cases, priests of later dynasties, finding that robbers had broken in, took it upon themselves to salvage what remained of the royal mummies for safekeeping. Or perhaps the robbers themselves tore the wrappings apart looking for amulets and left the body to crumble. Standing in this chamber, there is a hallowed hush. It feels almost like being inside a church at midnight. Sacred, eerie, yet peaceful in a strange way. The air smells of dry, chalky limestone and a faint hint of ancient resins. Tiny crystals in the rock walls glint as our torch moves. This place was meant to be the Pharaoh's private realm for eternity, yet here we are as visitors. One might feel a touch of guilt at trespassing, even though we come with respect. The tomb's curse seems to hang in the air, like an unseen guardian. We tread carefully and speak only in whispers, if at all. The Pharaoh's presence is intangible but palpable. In these painted eyes that watch from the walls, in the hieroglyphic prayers that call him the Justified One, triumphant in the afterlife. Now we gently retreat from the burial chamber, leaving things as we found them. As we make our way out, imagine another scenario. It's not modern researchers leaving quietly, but ancient tomb robbers stealing out in the dead of night. Picture 2 or 3 men in oil-stained cloaks, their pockets heavy with gold rings and semi-precious stone amulets snatched from the coffin of the king. Their faces gleam with sweat and fear, as their flickering lamp casts gigantic shadows. They have dared the curse and plundered the holy sanctuary. As they hurry down the passage, perhaps one trips on a stone, and in the silent valley, the clatter echoes like the laughter of a god. They freeze, hearts pounding. Did anyone hear? Only the desert wind answers, moaning softly outside. They scramble out of the entrance they had forcibly reopened, and push the rubble back to conceal it, as it was before. Under a slice of moonlight, they make their escape across the hills, burdened with treasure and perhaps dread. Ere one of them whispers a prayer of apology to the spirits, just in case, while another mutters that it's only superstition. But each jump at the hiss of sand or the cry of a distant jackal, imagining it could be the wrath of Anubis on their trail. What became of those who violated the tombs? We don't always know. Some were likely caught by authorities and punished severely. The lucky ones might have gotten rich and felt no curse at all, unless you count the guilt that gnawed at them in their later years, or the fear that any misfortune was a result of divine vengeance. Ancient records from the Egyptian government of that era reveal trials of tomb robbers. Some were put to death, others mutilated or imprisoned. The Egyptians took the sanctity of these tombs very seriously, not only because of spiritual reasons, but because the wealth in them was part of the royal estate. However, the belief in curses and divine retribution was genuine. Many tombs contained not just physical traps or sealed doors, but magical protections. For example, some tomb walls had paintings of demons brandishing knives, meant to come alive in the spiritual realm to guard the burial. Others had execration texts, which were spells written on pottery and then broken, to curse enemies of the tomb, or the statelist verse.com. In the Valley of the Kings, the curses were typically written more subtly, if at all, often as blessings for the king that imply harm to those who would desecrate him. One famous inscribed curse from a nearby private tomb reads, "As for any man who shall enter this tomb in impurity, I shall seize his neck like a bird listverse.com. The thief's neck wrung like a goose by the tomb's divine protector, a vivid and terrifying image. It's said that in a tomb at Saqqara, far in the north, older than these valley tombs, the owner left a warning that the gods would wring the neck of tomb breakers listverse.com. The psychological impact of these words must have been heavy. Can you imagine standing in a dark chamber with only a flickering lamp, reading such a thing on the wall, the hieroglyphs themselves seeming almost alive in the dancing light, as if the painted eyes of the tomb owner are watching you? Even the bravest might feel a chill down the spine. We step out of the tomb, back into the crisp night air of the valley. Overhead, the stars have come out in full glory, studding the black dome of the sky. The constellation of Orion, which the ancient Egyptians associated with Osiris, is rising above the eastern cliffs. Orion's belt points roughly towards the south, and ironically, those three stars mirror the pattern of the three pyramids we saw at Giza, a coincidence that later generations would find poetic. Out here, away from any city lights, the Milky Way spreads across the heavens, the celestial Nile shimmering. In ancient belief, the pharaoh's soul, once it had passed the tests of the underworld, would join the stars, sailing with Ra, or dwelling among the imperishable stars of the north. Looking up now, one has the sense that those stars are indeed the souls of departed kings, shining down with a cold, distant light. All around us, the valley is silent. Perhaps a light wind sighs through the rocks. The tomb entrances are all hidden from view or resealed, and one would never guess how many splendid corridors and chambers lie just beyond the rock faces. It's like standing in a sleeping city, a city of the dead, where each tomb is a house filled with art and treasure, locked up and dark, awaiting its owner's awakening in the afterlife. There is a heavy peace here. One feels like a trespasser in someone's bedroom at midnight, or in a lion's den while the beast slumbers. You take careful steps, respectful of the unseen presence of ancient royalty. Our journey through the hidden tombs and cursed warnings has been sobering and mesmerizing. But there is one more tale to tell in these hills, one that ties together the ancient and the modern, the living and the dead, in an uncanny way. It is the most famous story of a pharaoh's curse, one that played out not in the time of the pharaohs, but in our own era, when his tomb was uncovered. For our next chapter, we will follow the faint lamplight of discovery down a set of stone steps that, once upon a time not so long ago, led into a sealed chamber untouched for centuries. It is the story of Tutankhamun's tomb and the legend of the curse that followed those who entered. A gentle pause, perhaps the distant hoot of an owl echoes in the valley. Then the scene shifts, bringing us to a different time, the early 20th century, yet maintaining the same hush and wonder. Chapter 5. The Curse of Tutankhamun's Tomb. In the winter of 1922, the Valley of the Kings lay quiet and largely emptied of its treasures by previous excavations and ancient thieves. By then, most people believed that all the royal tombs had been found. But one man, an archaeologist named Howard Carter, had a hunch that something still lay hidden. By the light of a cooler November dawn, his team of local workers and his patron, Lord Carnarvon, gathered in a secluded part of the valley floor. Carter had been systematically searching here for years, and finally a promising clue had emerged, a set of steps cut into the rock, obscured for ages under rubble. Imagine the scene. Under the bright desert sun by day, workers carefully cleared the steps, revealing a descending staircase. At the bottom, a sealed doorway was found, plastered and stamped with ancient official seals, the jackal and 9 captives, the mark of the Royal Necropolis Guard. Carter's heart must have pounded as he realized he had discovered an intact tomb, one that robbers hadn't fully breached. The seal suggested it belonged to a pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. Could it be the boy king Tutankhamun, whose resting place had eluded searchers? Now shift to a few days later, on November 26th, 1922. It is evening after sundown. Carter has waited for Carnarvon to arrive so they can enter together. In the cool stillness of twilight, they widen a hole in the plaster door and insert a candle. Carter peers through the gap. Warm air, trapped for millennia, brushes his face, carrying with it the scent of age, a mix of dust, dried oils, and perhaps faint traces of incense. It's utterly dark inside until Carter's candle flame flickers into the space. As his eyes adjust, golden light glints back at him. He sees shapes, strange, marvelous shapes, a jumble of items, gilded couches shaped like divine beasts, chests inlaid with ivory, statues, a golden throne. Carnarvon, behind him, impatiently asks, "Can you see anything?" Carter, spellbound, replies, "Yes, wonderful things." That moment is like a breach in time. For over 3,000 years, those treasures sat in silence and darkness, and now human eyes behold them again. Carter and Carnarvon carefully widen the hole and step through into the antechamber of Tutankhamun's tomb. They proceed by the soft glow of flickering candles and lanterns, moving slowly, as if in a dream. The items are piled haphazardly, as the tomb was hastily packed due to the young king's unexpected death. Each object is a marvel. There are ritual beds, alabaster vases glowing in the candlelight, painted boxes, and the life-size guardian statues of the king that stand on either side of a sealed inner doorway. These black-painted wooden statues, in the likeness of Osiris, seem like silent sentinels. The air is heavy, untouched for ages. Motes of dust dance in the lamplight with their every movement. They find the sealed doorway to the inner burial chamber. That door, too, bears seals, intact. They decide to wait before opening it, to do things methodically. They leave, resealing the entrance to guard against intruders, and the valley returns to quiet under the stars. But word of the discovery spreads like wildfire across the world. As days pass, and the tomb is prepared to be fully opened, excitement and superstition both hang in the air. The Egyptian workforce, while proud and eager, also speaks in hushed tones about disturbing the dead. Some recall old stories that death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the pharaoh's peace. In truth, Tutankhamun's tomb had no explicit curse inscription carved on its walls, unlike those we discussed earlier, penned at museum. But that does not stop imaginations. The idea of a pharaoh's curse was already popular, and now it found a perfect stage. Fast forward a few months. By spring of 1923, the tomb's treasures are being catalogued and slowly removed for study. The world is enthralled by the riches and splendor: golden coffins, the iconic funerary mask of Tutankhamun, jewelry, statues. However, a darker narrative begins to form. Lord Carnarvon, who funded the expedition and who was one of the first inside, falls ill shortly after the tomb's opening. He had a mosquito bite that became infected, leading to blood poisoning. In early April 1923, Carnarvon dies in Cairo, only a few weeks after witnessing the tomb's wonders. The newspapers sensationalize it. The curse of the pharaoh strikes. They point out that a figurative curse had seemingly claimed its first victim. The story goes that at the moment of Carnarvon's death, the lights in Cairo mysteriously went out, and back in England, his dog howled and dropped dead. These details might have been coincidences or dramatized retellings, but they captured the public's imagination. Our narrative lens, however, stays calm and observational. Picture a scene a few nights after Carnarvon's death. Howard Carter is alone in the tomb by lamplight, examining some wall paintings. The atmosphere is heavy. He is mourning his friend and benefactor, while also likely fending off an uneasy feeling. The local Egyptian foreman, Ahmed, stands at the entrance out of respect, but will not go inside at this hour, not after what happened. Carter brushes it off outwardly, but as he stands in the sepulchral gloom, perhaps he hears something faint, a soft rustling. He pauses, heart beating a little faster. Is it just the sound of his own linen sleeves as he moved, or a faint stir of ancient air through a crack? He holds the lamp up, and the golden face of Tutankhamun's outer coffin gleams back at him from the open sarcophagus in the burial chamber beyond. The young king's likeness seems serene, eternally patient. Carter assures himself the curse is nonsense. After all, he himself would live until 1939, well over a decade later, untouched by any curse. But at this moment in our story, he doesn't know the future. He only knows that one colleague is dead and others have fallen ill. Indeed, over the next few years, a number of people connected to the tomb's opening or excavation suffer accidents or die unexpectedly. Carnarvon's half-brother dies in 1923 from blood poisoning as well, after a minor surgery. One of the radiologists who x-rayed the mummy in early 1924 dies of a mysterious illness. By 1929, it was reported that as many as 11 people linked to the tomb's discovery had died, some of them in strange or sudden circumstances, including Carnarvon's secretary and other spare non museum pen.museum. The press eagerly compiled these as evidence of a pharaoh's curse. Much of it was exaggerated. For example, some of those people had been elderly or in poor health to begin with, and Carter himself, the primary tomb opener, lived to age 64. But the pattern of deaths, clustered in time, felt eerie to the public. Now, let's weave this into our bedtime narrative in a calm way. We imagine the spirits of the valley observing this all in silence. Perhaps the ancient gods, or the Ka, spirit, of Tutankhamun, watches with mild indignation as his sanctum is disturbed, not wrathful like a horror movie, but with the dignity of an offended host. One by one, the intruders meet their fates. In a poetic sense, one could say the curse found them, whether by pure chance or by some intangible force of fate. There is a scene often recounted. On the day the tomb was opened, Carter's pet canary, which had a golden yellow colour, was eaten by a cobra that slithered into its cage. The Egyptian workers took this as a sign. The cobra was the emblem of the goddess Wadjet, protector of kings. To them, it meant the pharaoh's spirit had taken the form of a cobra to strike down the bird, which symbolized the foreign intruders. Whether true or not, this tale spread widely. We picture that morning. The camp is abuzz, because Carter's servant rushes out, saying a cobra is in the canary's cage. The cobra's eyes gleam as it swallows, then escapes into the rocks. The workers mutter prayers and refuse to go into the tomb that day until a ritual is done. Carter might dismiss it externally, but even he notes it in his diary with a curious eye. Throughout 1923 and 1924, the process of cataloguing and removing the treasures from Tutankhamun's tomb continues slowly. Each day, items are carefully packed and sent to Cairo's museum. One evening, one of Carter's associates is packing a small statuette when he slips and badly injures himself. He later dies of complications. Another member of the team comes down with a fever that nearly kills him. Each time whispers in the newspapers and bazaars grow, "The curse! The curse!" Some say they see ghostly figures at dusk near the tomb entrance, or hear a pharaoh's chariot wheels in the distance at midnight. The more scholarly laugh this off, attributing things to germs or coincidence. In fact, modern scientists later speculated that unknown toxins or mold spores in sealed tombs might have contributed to illnesses. But to the popular imagination, it was simply that the pharaoh's soul was exacting vengeance for the disturbance of his rest. Yet our retelling remains soothing in tone. We're not trying to frighten, but to reflect on the mystical interplay of perception and reality. So we may say, whether or not any curse was real, the story of Tutankhamun's tomb reminds us of the reverence the ancients had for the sanctity of their burials. In life, Tutankhamun was a minor king who died very young, but in death he achieved a kind of immortality through this discovery and the tales woven around it. For decades now, people have spoken of King Tut's curse, making it one of the most enduring legends of modern times regarding ancient Egypt. We can imagine, in a fanciful way, that somewhere in the afterlife, the spirit of Tutankhamun might smile at this. He was, after all, destined to be forgotten, yet now he's one of the most famous pharaohs of all. Perhaps the gods granted him this curious revenge, not lethal wrath on his desecrators, for not all died, but something more poetic, eternal fame and an aura of mystery that captivates millions. His name is never to be forgotten now. In a way, the curse ensured his immortality in human memory. Picture now the tomb of Tutankhamun as it is today, empty of its treasures, all safely in museums, but still adorned with its beautiful wall paintings. The mummy of the young king lies again in his coffin in the burial chamber, as it was decided to leave him there, even as his grave goods were taken out. tourists file in quietly with electric lights. Yet if you visit late, when the crowds are gone and you linger, you might still feel something of that original atmosphere. The painted eyes of Tutankhamun's sarcophagus seem to gaze upward. The very air has a stillness, and if you close your eyes, you can imagine standing in that moment of first discovery, the excitement, the awe, and yes, the trepidation that perhaps a millennia-old spell was lying in wait. A gentle breeze blows through the Valley of the Kings as our tale of Tutankhamun's curse draws to an end. The valley is at peace again, the archaeologists long gone, the artifacts moved to places of honor, and the pharaoh at rest in his tomb. The supposed curse has become a story to tell by firesides, much like we are doing now, a story mixing truth and legend. Chapter 6. Eternal Egypt, a Night's Reflection. Now our journey comes full circle. We have travelled from the pyramid fields of Giza through a lost labyrinth into the hidden tombs of Thebes, and even bridged into the modern era with the tale of Tutankhamun. Night has deepened once more over the land of Egypt. We find ourselves back on the Nile's bank, perhaps near where we started. The river flows on, a ribbon of silver under the moonlight. The tall reeds sway, and the air is warm and still. A lone date palm casts a shadow in the moon's glow. In the distance, if we look closely across the water, we might see the faint outline of a ruined temple, its columns like ghosts of an ancient faith, standing against the horizon. Everything is quiet. A small fishing canoe drifts by, the fisherman guiding it silently, careful not to make a splash and scare away the fish. On the far bank, a jackal silently pads along, stopping to sniff the air, then vanishing behind a dune. The night creatures are out. Tiny bats flit overhead, feasting on insects that hover near the water. The constellation Orion now stands high in the sky, and the star Sirius, beloved by the ancient Egyptians as the herald of the flood, twinkles just above the eastern horizon, announcing midnight. As we sit by a low fire on the riverside, imagine the gentle crackle of the embers, the orange glow illuminating our tired yet contented faces. We reflect on the secrets we've witnessed. Ancient Egypt holds an endless well of stories. We saw how the Egyptians built mighty structures to guard their secrets and their dead, yet time found ways to unveil them. We saw how belief in magic and curses was not mere superstition to them, but a real force interwoven with their religion and ethics. We travelled alongside pharaohs who sought eternal life so fervently that they filled their tombs with everything they might need, guarded by both physical and magical means. Consider the cycle of time we've observed. Pharaohs built pyramids to last forever, but eventually those pyramids were entered and their contents lost. A pharaoh built a labyrinth to hide his tomb, but that too fell to ruin. The New Kingdom kings hid their graves in a remote valley, but they too were eventually exposed, whether in ancient times or by modern hands. And yet, what was lost has, in another sense, been found by us, by historians, by dreamers. The knowledge and memory of these ancient people has resurfaced. Egypt kept her secrets just long enough, until the world was ready to listen again. We also saw how each generation perceives these secrets differently. To the ancients, a curse was a literal warning, a legal and spiritual deterrent. To early 20th century folks, it became a thrilling story of mummy's revenge. To us now, perhaps it is a reminder to treat the past with respect, and that there are things we might not fully understand. But here, under the starry sky with the soothing sounds of nature, any fear is far away. The curses and ghosts, if they exist, are content to remain in their realm. We are but respectful visitors, and we depart in peace. We can almost fancy that if there were spirits watching us on our journey, the spirit of Khufu in his pyramid, or Amenemhat wandering the remnants of his labyrinth, or those pharaohs whose tombs we tiptoed into, they nod in acceptance. We came with reverence and awe, and we leave with the same. A soft mist begins to rise off the Nile, blurting the outlines of the reeds and boats. The eastern sky just hints at the first promise of dawn, a faint lightening, though the stars still rule. This night in Egypt, like all nights, must eventually yield to day, and so too our storytelling must gently yield to silence. Before we close our eyes, we take one last mental journey. Envision the ancient Egyptians themselves at bedtime. Perhaps a family living not far from where we sit, but 3,000 years ago. In a simple mud brick home, a grandmother has just finished telling a tale to her grandchildren about the deeds of Isis and Osiris, or about a heroic prince who outwitted a deadly sphinx-like demon. The children yawn and curl up on their straw mats, gazing at the small oil lamp's flame dancing on the wall. Somewhere outside, the lullaby of a nightjar bird warbles. The grandmother might step out to the doorway, looking at the same familiar stars. She perhaps whispers a prayer to Isis to guard the children through the night, and for the sun, God to return safely come morning. She is not thinking of curses or tombs. Those are far-off concerns. But she knows, as all people of her time do, that the gods are ever present and must be respected. She pours a small libation of cool water onto the ground as an offering, then goes in to sleep. In the end, what are the hidden secrets of Egypt? They are not only the treasures of gold or the mummies in their splendid coffins. They are also the whispered prayers of that grandmother, the knowledge kept by scribes in papyrus scrolls, the engineering wisdom of those who raised the pyramids, and the spiritual conviction that life continues beyond death. They are the echoes of human experiences so old, yet so relatable: love, fear, faith, and curiosity. These secrets live on as surely as the Nile flows. They were never truly lost. They were simply waiting, like seeds in the desert, to bloom when the time was right. As our narrative draws to a close, allow yourself to feel the profound calm that Egypt's timeless landscape can impart. The heavy eyelids of night weigh upon you, just as the eyelids of statues of pharaohs, half closed, in eternal meditation. Let the images we've painted settle in your mind: the golden light of dawn on a pyramid, the endless corridors of a labyrinth, the cool hush of a tomb, and the starry blanket over the desert. They will remain with you, gentle and undisturbed, through the night. Finally, we take a slow, deep breath of the desert air, scented with a hint of river wetness and distant jasmine. In and out, the Nile whispers its final lullaby. The ancient stones keep their watch. The curses, if they ever were, have fallen asleep, leaving only lessons and wonder. Now, as the first pale rays of dawn begin to touch the eastern sky, we say farewell to this magical journey through time. May the peace of this night stay with you. In the grand silence of history, all is well. The pharaohs rest in their endless dream, and we too can rest. Good night and sweet dreams from the land of ancient secrets.